everyone, Amy Astro here with another PixInsight tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Facebook as Amy Astro. This year I'm offering calendars and you can find details on Facebook. Quantities are limited, so act fast. Here is a fan requested video. If you have an idea, leave it in the comments below. I'm keeping a list of them and working through them. Someone asked me, what is the difference between automatic background extraction and dynamic background extraction? Which is the best to use? Unfortunately, there's no real clear answer to this. This is something that you have to decide for yourself. Probably the image will actually decide it for you. Both the automatic background extraction and dynamic background extractions, they use different algorithms to calculate the background that is needed to be removed. The unwanted background, the typical vignetting or light pollution gradient. I'm going to use this image of the Trifid that was taken with a ZWO ASI 071 color cool camera. This image has been calibrated, cosmetically corrected, registered, integrated, and drizzled. Now the overall image quality is kind of so-so, but that's part of my learning curve. My stars are slightly elongated, as I was probably not as picky when I was selecting them through the approval process back then. We're going to try both extraction processes and then compare subtraction versus division. I'll run them through a quick color calibration, and from there you'll decide which image you like and which one you want to continue processing with. So really this is going to be up to you. But let's get started. This is my image of the Trifid. You can see clearly it's orange, it's ugly. We need to peel this orange layer off, and that is part of the light pollution. So to do that, let's try dynamic background extraction first, okay? So I'm going to start here. I'm going to make a clone copy. So if I click over here on the identifier and drag this out, I have a clone copy. And let's give it an identifier. This is going to be my start for my ABE, automatic background extraction, and we're going to save this one for later and tuck them down here for now. And this one is going to be my start for my dynamic background extraction, just so we know where we're starting from. Okay, so I open up the dynamic background extraction process, and you can find this under processes, background modelization, and they're both hanging out right here. Okay, so when you open this up for the first time, you see everything is shaded out like you can't select anything. This is one of those processes that you actually have to hit the reset button to activate it. Okay, so what I need to do is create some sample points all along this image that will be of just the background and no stars. And we're going to use this little algorithm here. And under the model parameters, I'm going to bump my tolerance up to like 1.5. And a default sample radius, 5 is pretty good. Sometimes I bump this up to 10. It really depends on how dense the star field is. And as you can see, this is a pretty dense star field. And you can do, you know, anywhere from 5 samples per row across, or 10 or 20. This is your call. But really about 7 to 8 is more than enough. Okay, so what I need to do now is that I have my tolerance set, my sample radius, and my sample rows. I'm going to hit generate, and this generated all my sample points across this image. And you can see it's missing some holes here. It should be in this really nice grid pattern, but it's calculating that in this next area where it would expect to be one, it's just too dense with stars. So let's go ahead and we're going to zoom in on this just a little bit. Push them over. Make them bigger if I can, just so we can see what's going on here. And let's go up to this top corner. And what you need to do is systematically go through each one of these little selection points. See, I've got one right here. If I click on it, you can see over here is a little sample preview. And wherever you see it is black, that is a star that is sitting on. But also this image is sitting, this one is sitting right on the edge. So click and drag him out and then move him to an area where it is just background. See, there's no stars in my little preview window here. Actually, I must have missed them because I actually copied them. So let's just drag that one up there. Okay. And what I do is I go through and I click on each one of these. Now, another easy way to do this is you see this like little playing of a cassette recorder like we're used to. If we fast forward through the next one has some stars in it. But the thing is with that, I don't have one highlighted in green on my screen, so I have to go hunt for it. Sometimes they're in order, sometimes they're not. But I need to move this one out some. And if we go forward to the next one, he's got some black, and this is all because they're on the edge. So let's just bring him out. Nope, not there. Wow, we've got some gradients or light pollution or maybe nebulosity here. Let's just bring them over here. Okay? And you will go through each one of these and analyze all of these selection points to see what they look like. Let's fast forward to the next one. Lucky us, it's the next one right here. I'm going to click them, I'm going to drag them about right there. So you can imagine if you chose more sample points, this will take you a really long time to do. That one looks good. Let's click on this one down here. That one looks good. Where else do I see one? I don't see any in here, but you can always add one. If you feel like it has a big blank and it needs one, just click and drag. You add one. No big deal. Have as many as you want. But there is a point of negative returns. That one looks good. This one looks good. Now, if I had made my sample radius bigger, this square in here would be bigger for us to look at. This one looks good. I'll tell you what, let's play with this. What if I made my sample default radius 15? We hit generate again, you notice my boxes are all bigger. So this first one is hanging out up here in the corner. He's got some nastiness going on. But at some point, it gets harder and harder to find areas that are just background and no stars. You see that one's going to be a little tricky. This one is up here on the edge, and I probably should have cropped these images first. That way it's not homing in on those edges so much. Now that one's got a star in each corner, but how am I going to pull that out? Now, say right here, I can't find a spot to keep this guy. No big deal. Delete him with that X right up there. And this is because I made that box bigger. So you can see sometimes a smaller box is actually easier to work with. So I'm just going to click on all of them and make sure that there's no stars in my sample box. Now the big question is automatic background extraction or dynamic background extraction, which one's going to do a better job getting rid of this orange light pollution gradient on my image? Really going to be hard to say until we try them both. I mean, I have my personal favorite, but I'm going to wait just a minute and process this and then see if we come to the same agreement. All right, so I've gone in and looked at all of them, but as one quick check, we can sit here and forward through all of them and look at these little preview windows. Here, let's go to the beginning. And let's truck through and see if any of them are sitting on stars as I click through. That one could be questionable. Now we got to find the green. There he is in all of this. Let's push him up just a little bit. All right, and keep moving through. All right, now it looks like all of them. So I have my samples all selected here and none of them are sitting on stars. Now the next question here, let's shrink these up, will be our target image correction. Now we have two choices here. We can do subtraction or we can do division. Now division, we use this one where we're dealing with vignetting alone on an image. But this image clearly has light pollution written all over it. I mean, it's taken in my backyard, I'm within the city limits, light pollution. And subtraction is what we would use basically for light pollution issues. So I like to choose subtraction when I'm doing these. Now I don't want to normalize these. I can discard the background model if I want, but for right now I'm actually going to show it to you so you can see what it looks like. And I can replace this target image. And I believe that is what no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and let it make another copy so we can show you the difference between subtraction and division. All right, let's run this through. Here we go. Okay. So this is my image after subtraction. Now it's going to look a little flat, but we still have to do a background neutralization and color calibration. But look, it did a really good job peeling away that ugly orange layer, and at least we can see what's going on. So that's pretty good. So this one is dynamic background extraction. Let's change the identifier to sub for subtraction. Okay, and say okay. Let's minimize this. Let's tuck them over here later for comparison. But this is the layer that it peeled off. Let's give it a stretch. Now right now it's really hard to tell. I mean, there's some gradients here, but let me minimize this guy. I'm going to open up the histogram for you and give it a live view. And here we go. I gave it a little bit of a stretch here so you can just see these are the gradients that were removed from that image. So you can definitely see things were getting pulled off, which is good. Let's minimize this. And I'm going to close the preview and I'm going to get rid of that image because I don't care about the background anymore. Let's see what happens when we do this as division. Our points are already set, so we're good to go. And let's run this as division and compare the two. All right, so that's good. Let's change the identifier of this guy. And let's change him to div for division. All right, let's give him a stretch. I predict he's going to be flat also, but is he going to look any different? Maybe a little different, maybe a little less red. Let's compare. Where'd the other guy go? He must have woke up behind something. Shrink this up. There it is. Okay, so here is division. Here is subtraction. Now division says it got rid of just the vignetting, and subtraction says he got rid of the light pollution. And you really will have to decide which one of these you would want to continue with. Now this one looks good, but I almost feel like you might have peeled away too much color, but I have some of the blue of the Trifid which I want to see, where this is more of a pinky white. It's really up to you to decide which way you want to go. Now you can, and I've seen some people do this, you can run both division and subtraction on the same image. But if you're going to do both of them, you want to choose to use division first. So you would start with this image next and run it through the process again with subtraction on it after. So that's really your call, but this looks pretty darn good. I'm going to minimize this and save it for later. Now the question is, if these are done with dynamic background extraction, what will automatic background extraction look like? All right, so let's take a look at what this gradient looked like real quick. Let's open up our histogram, let's do a live view, and let's give it a little stretch, and you can see the gradients that it was pulled off also. And really this looks extremely similar to what happened during the subtraction process. So once again, I'm not real positive which one was the best one. They both look like they did about the same job. So let's close these out and close live view, and let's get rid of this. Okay, so we have done our dynamic background extraction on the image. And that's where we started. We got the division, the subtraction. Now let's go to automatic background extraction. You saw that the dynamic took a little bit of time. Now let's open up automatic background and let's start with subtraction. And we'll look at what the background model looked like. I'm not going to replace my image because I want it to make a clone copy of it. And all I have to do now, no sample points, no nothing, run it. And it's going to run a different algorithm, and it's going to choose sample points for you. So you don't have a whole lot of control here. But you're going to find out it's much, much faster. So if you don't feel like doing all those little sample points, you can always do it this way first. And if it doesn't look quite right, then go back and do it the longhand way. All right, here we go. So this is with automatic background extraction, running as subtraction. There we go. All right, let's give this a rename. Subtraction. Automatic background extraction with subtraction. That's a lot of actions there. And let's open up the dynamic version. All right, do you see any differences? Very subtle, very subtle. I mean, right here, it's definitely darker than right here, but is that going to matter? Probably not. For the speed of it, I would probably go with this one, but that's just my personal preference. Let's go ahead and minimize this. We'll push this off to the side, minimize him, and for grins and giggles, let's look at what we got rid of in the background. Looks about the same. Reset, live view. Let's give it a stretch. And the gradients are actually a little different in the pattern, where before we had this big bubble and now we don't. So which was better? I can't tell you. This is where your eyes are going to have to tell you. The image will speak to you. It will tell you what needs to be done. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. We don't need it, so let's just get rid of it. Yes, go ahead and delete it. All right, let's close here. Really, I mean, you have to decide what you want the image to look like. And a lot of times I will run them in each way, and then I will process them through the color calibration, and then I'll decide from there which one I want to keep. All right, let's run on the start one here, automatic background extraction. This time let's do division, and I'm going to grab new instance and just drop it there. I could have done the square. Your choice. Two ways. And just like with dynamic background extraction, if you wanted to, you could run both of them. Just remember division first, then subtraction. It's just like the order of mathematics. You divide before you subtract. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at the background first. What are we getting rid of? Histogram. Let's give him a stretch. Live view. And stretch him out. Oops, I stretched him too fast. There he goes. But you see, we've still got gradient going on, and it's about the same pattern as the subtraction was, but yet different than dynamic. So different algorithms, different results, but they look extremely similar. All right, let's close these guys out. I'm going to get rid of him. Minimize, and let's see what this looks like with the stretch. All right, not too bad. This one was division, so let me go ahead and change my identifier so we can keep up with these later. All right, so there's division on automatic background, and this one is going to be division on dynamic background. Extremely similar. All right, so now that we've proved that they run very similar to each other, slightly different, but similar, let's go ahead and run real quick background neutralization and do a color calibration. So to run background neutralization, let's zoom in on a part of just the background. You can see my stars are not so hot looking, but that's okay. We're not grading my stars today. We are just trying to figure out which algorithm works best for us. So the first thing we want to do is grab a sample point of just the background. And the next thing I want to do is create another preview of just the good stuff in this picture. I like to create both my previews right up front. All right, so now we've got our background neutralization open. Let's grab ourselves our preview, and we want to grab the background preview, which is number 1. So there's preview number 1, and we'll say OK, and let's run it. And this is going to neutralize our background for us. All right, oddly enough, it turned it a little bit more pink. Okay, now let's do a quick color calibration. And we want to grab the reference white, which will be the good stuff of the image on preview 2. And we'll come down here to the background reference, which is going to be just the background, which is going to be our preview number 1. And let's run it. All right, and sometimes it makes it look funky, don't worry. Go ahead and unstretch it and give it a new stretch. All right, so that's what it thinks our color calibration should look like. Let's go ahead and delete all of our previews. And I'm going to rename this identifier. I'm just going to put a CC at the back because we know we've color corrected it. And let's shrink this one up. Let's run a little bit of a fast forward here as I go through the background neutralization and color calibration for the other 3 images, just to get ready for us to compare things. There we go. Okay. So we have all 4 ways that you could possibly do this. All slightly different, all just great. It's going to be up to you to choose which one you would use. And chances are, this is the one that I'm going to start with. And that's just because it's how I usually run them. So I would start processing this image right there. But you could always, if you've taken the time to do all of these, save them all. If this one goes wonky partway through the imaging process, you can always step backwards in this one and see what you did wrong, or start with another one and see if it works out better. So this is what I've got for you today, the difference between dynamic background extraction and automatic background extraction. It's a 50-50 guess as to which one to use. They're different algorithms. They both work great. Dynamic takes a little bit more time, and automatic is automatic, no time at all. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me. This was a fan requested video. If you have a question that you would like answered, leave me a comment below. I will be happy to read it and respond. And if I can make a video, I will make a video that is personalized just for you. I will leave you here with the finished image of the Trifid. This is Amy with ABE Astro, and I am wishing you all the very clearest of skies.